the Samuna KC Podcast, a podcast on personal branding. Executive producer, Samuna KC.
Are you waiting for a light bulb moment or an apple to fall into your head so that you can get all the answers? Hanuman, a character from Hindu mythology, was cursed and forgot who he was until someone reminds him of his own powers. Most of us are the Hanumans of 21st century. Seldom anyone reminds us of our powers, and then we rarely believe in them. This podcast is a weekly reminder that you better believe that you are special. Consider subscribing if you want to discover and develop one variable that is under your control that can make or break your business, career, and life as a whole, a personal brand. Prabal Guru, a world-class designer and an immigrant from Nepal, while looking at a design from an African designer, said, "Every person is a fable from the land that you may never visit, but their stories may heal your soul." International students bring billions of cash into US economy every year and add value to the cultural diversity of American society. However, when the crisis hit, this is the very group that's least addressed. In today's episode, we are talking with a guest who can help you to navigate through this crisis that you may be experiencing as an international student due to COVID-19 and its effect on American economy. Welcome to the Samuna KC Podcast. I'm your host, Samuna. If you enjoy this episode and feel it added some value to your life, then please take a screenshot of this episode and share it with your friends on Instagram stories and tag me at Samuna KC. Also, don't forget to subscribe us on Apple Podcast. It's free to subscribe, and by doing it, you'll help others to find this free content. Today we have with us President Student Government, a Board of Directors for Student United, a 501c3 lobbying organization for students across Minnesota state. Passionate about advocate for social justice and equality, he loves to read books and opinion editorials, also to travel. Welcome, Kridis. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Samunaji. Thank you for having me on your show today.
Let's get right into the point. How is the situation of students, especially the student who lives in dorms? What's your experience had been?
Well, first of all, I haven't lived in the dorms, but I do know people that are living in the dorms. Fortunately, our campus, St. Cloud State, has tried its very best to give every sort of accommodation out to the students. So at St. Cloud State, what I've seen is the dorms still remain open with the dining hall still open. You can still get food. So that is a very, very beneficial situation for our students. And then those who had permanent residence or those who had permanent addresses across the United States, they had an option if they wanted to leave to their own houses, they could go. But as I said, international students were not asked to leave their dorms or anything like that, not asked to provide any documentation of if they cannot go anywhere or not. So our campus has been very supportive, and I've seen that across a few other campuses in our state. But the unfortunate part is we have heard many stories from students that are currently in despair because their campuses did not really give them an opportunity to stay on campus in their dorms. So that is quite concerning, but I think trying to reach out to help as much students as possible through what sort of resources that they can access. In our campuses, we have given some financial support for them to live somewhere else or things like that have been done. So in my opinion, as I said, as a first-hand knowledge of what's going on my campus, I think it has been remarkable to show that support to the international students on campus. However, things can be better at other different places.
Have you heard anything from any other state other than Minnesota or other than your university and the experience of students from other universities?
Well, I had seen somewhere on Facebook, on social media, that some universities in California that were evicting students out of their dorms, not giving accessibility to the resources on campus and asking them to leave, which was very concerning. But since that post, there was a petition that was being signed. So I did see some sort of a reconciliation effort done by the campus, that they gave an opportunity and to live on campus with some documentation of why they cannot go anywhere else and things like that. So, but as I said, those are not the typical things that a campus should do, because you are on one hand trying to welcome as many international students by giving incentives, but in the time of crisis, you are throwing them under the bus saying, hey, sorry, you have a different status. I don't think I can help you. So that was concerning. But as I said, when there are passionate people who advocate for social equality, social justice, things get done. So I don't think any campus right now has done anything that has caused students to be homeless. But there were some campuses that did not give many options. So it was very concerning to hear those.
What about to the people like who have very minimal options, like staying in the dorm, but then they may have some problem with the food? Also, as an international student, I was myself, and then I lived alone for a long time when I was studying in India. And most international students, they live alone. They are alone, and then that kind of emotional blanket is always missing, and at the same time there is a issue for food and shelter. So what are the possible resources that you have known so far, or in from your associations of the organization? Like, what do you suggest to a student who is listening right now?
Well, from a campus standpoint, I think there are many resources that exist in campuses that you can access. For example, food pantries, or if there is any community resources that have, I've heard of churches giving out food. I've heard of churches providing shelter to students. So my first thought would be to reach out to them, to see if there is something that the campuses have to offer, campuses can offer, But I want to introduce you something that we, as I said, I'm from Nepal, and we as Non-Resident Nepali Association in America, our NRNA NCC Student Task Force, what we have done is we have created a group of students from different campuses to come up with ways to reach out to those students that have faced food and housing insecurity or financial insecurities or other emotional challenges, how to make sure that they feel supported from the community that they belong to. So through that task force, we have identified different ways. So before the COVID happened, what the student task force did was appoint ambassadors at different universities. So campus ambassadors, where there was prominent presence of the Nepali Student Association, because what happens then is we have a constant conversation as to what's going on around their university and also what's going on around NRNA Central and what can NRNA do for the students. So, for that motive, in February, we had done a youth conference in Dallas, Texas, and we had found different measures, to give a brief idea of what we were planning was to create networking opportunities. We had the plans of workshops, seminars, events, and also, providing career counseling in both getting a job as well as how can we as NRNA help students be mobilized and get an opportunity to bring them into the network so that we know where students are, how can we support them. But I think coincidentally, something that came out of this was the student response team that was formed for NRNA NCC. And I'm a member of the student response team along with many other students as well as members and executive board members of the organization. So what we have done is we have tried to reach out to as many students by dividing into 4 different regions, and then utilizing the resources from the information that we can get from these 4 different regions to help identify how can we help the students who are in need. So finding out what is the population of students that are in a certain campus, what sort of difficulties these students are facing, and how can we help it. So in that process, we have had multiple meetings trying to identify or create a timeline of what needs to happen, what sort of support can we provide. So we're working closely with the central team as well and trying to get, the support of the Nepalese Embassy in Washington, D.C. to help us create this opportunity for not just NRNA, but overall different other local-based chapters, NRNA chapters or local community associations. So how do we create a mobilization in those chapters? And thanks to all those that have already been very active, I've heard very, very good things about some of the local chapters, about what they are doing, and that is fantastic. So in times of despair, I think when the community comes together, I think we can fight every sort of difficult challenges, So identifying ways to do this. And one of the things that you will see soon is an app is coming out to help bring together these network of students who are in different parts of the country so that we can bring them into the NRNA network, help them with resources, and in times like this, be able to help them with any sort of resources. Say a student who lost his job, say they were working on campus, but the campus is closed and the campus decided not to offer any more employment and they were laid off and they are facing food insecurity or something like that. So how can we help them? So we're trying to work on various different logistics. One way we have found is we established a fund that might be able to help some of it. So we're trying to find who is the student who is most in despair, who needs the resources right away through the student response team who are communicating with different stakeholders at these different places so that we get the data and we verify that the need is genuine and follow through different channels so that we can get that data and provide some sort of grocery relief, to some extent, as much as we can. But as I said, it would be to the most in despair who needs the resources right now. What we have been able to do is, as of April 7th, about 276 students across the United States were helped at different states. So they were given some sort of response. So I think that is what we can do right now. And through this response team, there has been different, meditation sessions that have been conducted to provide that psychological well-being and even providing that emotional support by even having communication with them or showing that, hey, we as a community together can help overcome some of these big challenges that may seem big. But as long as we stick together, we are talking to each other, we are telling the problems of each other to each other, I think there is a big problem solving that can happen if we all come together.
Yes, community is the answer to all the crisis. When everything ends, when everything goes away, if you are connected to a community, I think that's the biggest support that you can fall back to. If a listener would like to contact, and I just want to clarify here, these supports are only for Nepali international students as of now. And we are trying to grow the network so that we could help as much as international students as possible. But for now, all these supports are for Nepali international students only. And the social groups that Kritis was mentioning before, we'll link all those social groups in the show note. You can check it out. And if you want to help them or get involved with them, you can always do that. And to the international students who are not Nepali but listening to it, and someone who is not Nepali but needs some help, what I suggest is I only started this with one Facebook post where I asked, what about international student? And then I came up with an RNA NCC, and then I met different people. Now I am finally talking to Kritis. You'll have to start looking for it. And then best place to start is some of the business organization. Once you reach out to them, you'll definitely will find some ways that you can get help and then get some kind of a community together. So Kritis, if somebody would like to contact these organizations, where should they go?
So my first and best suggestion would be to reach out to the Student Task Force, and that you can do through is an email. It's students, students, @nrnusa.org. So that's the email address that they can contact. And we have different other contacts with our contact information and email that are spread across. So we can do that. And another best way is also to contact the Nepalese embassy, because we have been in close collaboration with them. We are working closely with them. So they will also help to give those information out to us, and we can reach out to the students who are facing those crises. And as I said, 276 students, that was the last data we had on April 7th. And those were all that students reached out to us or through our network in our regions that when we contacted, those were things that were said. So I think we do think that we'll see a lot more number of students, and we'll try to accommodate as much as possible in our capacity.
Right. And you were talking about this app where we all can connect together. Tell me something about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a concept that came up quite some time ago, and we're planning on releasing it out soon. But because of COVID-19, kind of slowed down. But as I said, every opportunity comes with a bright daylight. We are trying to do right now is use the platform to bring together the Nepali student community that is spread across the United States. I think, as I said, I'm a big believer in community development. And when communities come together, we find a ground that's so unique that puts us all together into one umbrella. I think that would be one of the finest achievement of what we can do when we think about how to utilize the student task force moving forward. How do we involve more ambassadors? How do we create hundreds of students under one platform so that at times like this, it is much easier to find out how we can help, or how do we find out how many students are needing help, So I think the app is a framework of our vision as NRNA Student Task Force. So we're trying to use this app to create a network with it. So we giving out information or taking in feedback or, posting information about any events that are coming, because as I said, there are different things that we are planning to do with workshops, career counseling, immigration counseling and stuff like that. So I think, that app is the hallmark of what we are trying to achieve as an organization so that we can build on the network. Every student that is spread across can come together under an umbrella and can collaborate, can work together as community and, exchange their ideas, be able to communicate with each other, communicate with NRNA, all of those. So I think that will be something that we look forward to, and it's coming out soon. So please look out for it.
Do we have the name of the app yet, or?
As far as I have the knowledge, it's Non-Resident Nepali Association Student Network. That's how we have classified it. And as I said, we're trying to test everything so that when we release it.
As of today, April 11, NRNA NCC is almost ready to launch the app. So by the time you listen to this episode, maybe we'll be able to link the app in the description, and then you can check it and download the app and start filling up your information. And you can either seek help or offer help, right?
Yes. So I guess right now the app is going to be focused on bringing together everybody under a platform so that we can identify how many students are in a particular university, how many students, just creating a demographic so that we can look from centralized perspective and how do we flow the information across, or how do we find a way to communicate with a certain group at certain universities, So it will be something to look out for because the app brings out a lot of possibilities. And as I said, when we move forward, when we find something, I think there will be a lot of additions on how to improve as well, because we get a lot of feedback from our students have thought about the app. So we're looking forward to releasing it, and seeing how the response is going to be and what can be done to improve on it. What are the things that students feel that we can do in that app, because we have various different diverse student groups within our community too, so living in different diverse parts of the country. So what sort of things we can do at each different level is what we are envisioning.
Kridesh, few days ago, I have seen a post on Facebook, particularly where NRNA NCC have requested local restaurant owners to support international students. So what is this movement about?
So I think, as I said, community depends on how each other, who can do it, help each other, right? So what we did as the student response team is to reach out to different Nepalese restaurants owned by Nepalese people to ask them if they are able, if they would want to find some sort of way to support our international students who might be facing food insecurity, because I think if they can get a hot meal a day from there, or even 2 meals, anything, or even subsidized meal at a lower cost, at a cheaper cost, then I think that burden of being food insecure will be out of the student's head, because there is a priority of academic success that comes with when you are a student, Let the food insecurity not be a part of the problem for you to not succeed academically, because we want every student to be successful. So how can we make sure that we are doing as much as we can as a community to help each other, to help the students who are facing challenging times? We created a Google Doc to see if there would be any interest from any Nepalese restaurant. So it's available out there. So I sincerely put forth my request to owners of restaurants, if you can, then please give this as a support to international students. I think they would be indebted to the support that you will give. And I think that shows how strong our community is, how we are proud of what we have in our country and how we can build that in this country as well as a community.
You slightly mentioned about immigrational support, because that's a big part being an international student. There's a lot of immigrational niceties that we need to follow, and that is something that every international student can do right now. So we'll just move from just being a Nepali international student community to the broader community here. So there is this process where you can apply for a work visa based on these crises. Do you want to speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So as an F1 student, you can apply if you are displaced financially by the unforeseen circumstances. You can apply for severe economic hardship work authorization, employment authorization. Now, those are bounded by some parameters, and that would include loss of financial aid or on-campus employment that would not be through your fault, or substantial fluctuations in currency value or exchange rates, and then also with inordinate increases in tuition or living costs, or the unexpected changes in the financial condition of your source of support, or you have unpaid medical bills that you hadn't seen, or some other substantial and unexpected expenses that may have accumulated. So these are different criteria, and some of them in the current situation will fall under these. So in order for you to apply, you would have to, again, go through a formal process of applying, and then you'd have to submit a I-765 form, which is the application for employment authorization, along with your I-20, so that you can verify through your DSO that you are eligible for that, and you have to be here for a year before you do that, before you are able to apply for it. So there are things that you would like to, and I'd always recommend that you reach out to the uscis.gov website so that you get the exact accurate information, and also reach out to your designated school officials at your campuses to make sure that you get the right information while applying, so that you don't have to worry about the process. And the fee for applying is $410. You can always ask for a waiver. These are some of the things that exist, that are there already. With this unforeseen circumstances of the COVID-19 and the impact it has caused on the economy, on the jobs, on employment, you can apply for this.
Kridesh, this employment authorization topic have brought me to another subject, which is very close to my heart, very important for me as an international student, as an immigrant. The contribution of economical and social contribution of an international student is very significant. But in comparison to that, the acknowledgement, I feel, is less. Most of the time, we feel like second-class citizen here. So what's your thought in it?
Well, I think when any country invites international students to their country, they are trying to build a cultural exchange, trying to get different cultures to combine so that there happens a social interaction between people and culture that are 7,000 miles apart, but be able to integrate and learn from each other. I think that's the most important part that many people miss out when they talk about international students or immigrants is what sort of a cultural background one comes from and what can we learn from that culture, or what can we share about our culture that is present in the United States to all these people. I think there is a significant role that international students play, not just in that social cultural aspect, but also contributing to the economy of this country. We come here, we pay our tuition fees and other different, we use the general life resources that we need through the available resources. So if you were to look by data, in 2018, when the U.S. Department of Commerce published its report, they have talked about $45 billion contribution to the U.S. economy. And not just that, we have a lot of international students that have chose to stay back and have worked in companies here and have given back to the country in different various forms. So I think that is an important piece of recognition that I think we should give to the international students, because it's very hard to live apart from your family, apart from your friends, apart from your home, and try to build a life that gives you further opportunities, that gives you numerous resources that are available that you can capitalize on and build, because in this day and age, it's about being a global 21st century citizen. And I think that is what we need to envision when we talk about what is it needed that we can do to bring together this community of international students and immerse them into the local population and see how we can work together. What can be the learning experiences and what can be the role that we can play, because these are challenging times, because we have a very volatile immigrant political situation. But that does not mean that we cannot recognize the contributions that international students make. And I sincerely hope that in the future days, we have a very big change of thoughts, change of ideas, change of perception coming in the people about how international students can contribute to their to the country that they are studying in, economically, socially, or through whatever contributions that they can make as an individual.
Yes, the world going global is like inevitable now. This is what the truth is. Wherever you live, wherever you travel, you always need to have this cultural intelligence, cultural knowledge, how to exchange your thought with each other. And then when an international student from any part of the world, they come into the States, they can exchange that with the people who live there, and they can use that knowledge to get out of their comfort zone and then understand the world outside and business, develop their personality, develop their career, and develop their personal brand. This whole podcast is about developing your own brand, personal brand, and then knowing each other, communicating with each other is a very integral part of developing that personal brand. And talking to someone who have came from, as you said, 7,000 miles away, can like open up the world to you that you have never even have imagined. So that's the power of the global world, where every one of us can come together and celebrate the global community and celebrate the idea of global citizen. So it was really nice to talk to you, Kritis. Thank you so much for your time. And any final thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to your show. I think it was a wonderful opportunity to reach out to your viewer, to your listeners of this podcast. But, I want to first thank Non-Resident Nepali Association in America, because they have put a tremendous amount of time and effort into helping everyone out here, helping the students, helping the normal common non-resident Nepalis over here, everyone, and I think that is something that we need to thank them about, because without their help, without the community coming together as an organization, we will not be able to achieve what we are trying to achieve individually. So I think a lot of thanks to them. And also, there are a lot of faces that goes unnoticed, but I think thanking the Nepalese embassy as well, putting together a group that is trying to help every Nepalese in our society, and also for our Nepalese students with the student task force that NRNA has worked with, and then the student response team. So I'd like to thank the organization, first of all, and giving me an opportunity also to be a part of the organization and helping through what I know, what I can contribute. And then, also thank every individual level organizations at different states, the local organizations that have helped, that have stood up to contribute to the community. I think they deserve a big applaud as well. And I also want to reach out to as many students as possible, our Nepalese students, to reach out if you need help, to identify ways. As I mentioned earlier, you can reach out to our student task force so that we can collect information, so that we know what you are facing and we can connect you to the resources, because we may not be able to give you everything, but we'll try to give you anything that we can in our capacity, through identifying resources or connecting you with local communities, connecting you with local people in the community, or, giving you information that might be helpful for you to find ways to get help.
Right.
I think this is an urge.
You said before, like it's easier for an individual to connect with an organization than for an organization to go to every individual. So I would also like to request all the Nepalese international students to join the party. And this is the hard time, and we'll get together to help each other. And once we are over it, and eventually we're going to get over it, it's all going to get past. After that, we'll have some party, we'll enjoy each other's company, because that's most important in the foreign land when you are in the foreign land. Thank you very much for your time and attention. All the links Kridish mentioned in the episode is available on the show notes. This podcast is not for the legal advice. Always consult your immigration attorneys for it. Please take a screenshot of this episode and share it with your friends on Instagram stories and tag me at Samuna KC. I'll see you next week again with some more resources to sail through these hard times. Until then, keep listening the Samuna KC Podcast. Take care of yourself. Namaste.